Welcome back. So as you can see, we have a lot of records to talk about. Preceding this as well, there is going to be either a top 15 or a top 20 albums of the mid-year. So there's going to be a lot of music to be discussed over the next couple of days. But let's start off with all of these. All of these are 8 or above. Not going to put numbers on each and every one of them because it's tough sometimes because a lot of them range, but all of them are fantastic and I highly recommend all of them. So Omar Apollo, God Says No. So I started following Omar Apollo around Ivory, which was probably a couple of years ago. And what I like about this record is that you still get the nice little bit of R&B, a little bit more of that kind of pop kind of aesthetics to it, kind of mixed in together. But you do get a little bit more lavishness, a little bit more kind of this grandeur of the production. Particularly, there's a good amount of strings, and it sounds like a good old orchestral arrangement is kind of brought around on this record. Empty is probably my favorite song for that example. There's this nice little piano lead, very soft, and the way it starts off is fantastic with these very hushed vocals, kind of contrasting with these amazing string arrangements. Second verse is a little bit more of this auto-tune process kind of sound. It still works out well. And the third verse goes into that Latin, Spanish, like, vocabulary. And the way that that's delivered along with everything that's going on, it's just a perfectly crafted song. And it kind of gives you a good idea of what this album is going for, along with some more poppier moments, along with some stuff that's a little bit more kind of more mainstream, a little bit more vibrant and louder, but they all work out nicely to craft a really great album listening experience. Lil Yachty and James Blake with Bad Cameo. I just did a review of this on my channel. I probably will link it down in the description. At first, I was rather disappointed with this record, but now that I've changed my perspective where it's Lil Yachty stepping into James Blake's universe, this album has been on repeat for a good amount of days so far. I have been going back to Woo the most, the way that it's a little bit more faster paced. It almost has this kind of drill kind of sound to it, and it's very hushed in the drums, but it's like this very quiet drill song in a way. And it's really cool to hear James Blake kind of work around with that as well. And it's cool to see that James Blake is experimenting in ways with working with Lil Yachty, but also experimenting in different kind of subgenres in a way. So Bad Cameo has a really great chemistry between the two. Amazing production as always. And Lil Yachty is a nice little addition to make it a little bit more of a quirkier sound, and overall it's just a fantastic experience. Lucky Day with Algorithm. So I started listening to Lucky Day kind of around the same time as Omar Apollo. I believe it's Candy Trip or Candy Drip. I'm not sure. I always get the two mixed up. But Lucky Day kind of falls in the same thing, although Lucky Day kind of definitely falls more into the R&B category. But this album is fantastic. I love the arrangements. I love the sounds on here. In particular, the second half is where this album really picks up its stride. Blame with Teddy Swims is probably one of my favorite songs of the year. Especially Teddy Swims brings an amazing vocal performance. And overall, it's a fantastic record. Fantastic record for the summer as well. I highly recommend it. So this is Lorelei, Box for Buddy, Box for Star. So this is one of my most, like, under the radar picks. I found this on Album of the Year, and I was just kind of curious, especially by the title, and also by the album covers a little bit more weirder to me. But this is very much like a DIY pop record. It is all over the place, though, when it comes to its genres. The very first song in here sounds like some, like, old Americana, old bluegrass kind of stuff. And it kind of jumps around everywhere. You could definitely tell this was made by just one person. It is a little bit more minimal in its production, especially with synths, and also the vocals are a little bit kind of raw and unprocessed, but overall it makes this sound just kind of really endearing, and it does create some amazing, very catchy moments. Overall, it's a pretty great record, probably one of my favorites of the year. It's really hard to pick a favorite because I really like this record in total. It's really fantastic. So Lupe Fiasco with Samurai. So Lupe Fiasco returns with something a little bit more kind of in that boom bap kind of traditional kind of sound, but Lupe, of course, is a master lyricist, and I'm still peeling back the lyrics of this record because reading up some stuff, this is apparently a lot more of a personal kind of endeavor for Lupe Fiasco, and I guess reading up that people wanted him to be personal, but he's been personal in all of his records, but this is the most upfront and personal, so I'm going to have to go back and listen to get more, to peel back the layers of this record, but overall, just as a first and couple listens by itself, it's still a great sounding record. Lupe sounds fantastic. And overall, if you're looking for something that's going to be just really pleasing on the ears and is really good for like an evening drive, Lupe Fiasco's Samurai is great. I think it's only like eight or nine tracks as well. No worries, why Laud? So, Knowledge, Anderson .Paak come back together and provide some amazing, sultry, syrupy, great songs on this record. Anderson .Paak brings a good mix of the rapping that I've kind of missed over the past couple of years, but also the amazing singing and vocal performances as well. And Knowledge is amazing on the boards of production. From Here with October London and Snoop Dogg is absolutely incredible. And I love the very start, the way that I think it's October London is singing the very like pre-chorus or the chorus of it. It just sounds so angelic. The way that the strings are kind of just laced through. Everything about it's fantastic. And the vocal like snippet towards the end with Snoop Dogg kind of just puts the pieces together. Anderson .Paak also brings a great performance nonetheless. Amazing record. One of probably my favorite records of the year as well. There's been a lot of those this month. There has been a lot of albums that it's really hard to replace albums that I really loved at the beginning of the year because I'm finding so much more records. So now we go to Don Toliver with Heartstone Psycho. Heartstone Psycho is more of a return to form with something a little bit more of a darker, kind of almost a rock kind of twist when I think of Tore Up as an example. It is a little bit more darker in its kind of aesthetics and its tone, but it is definitely a return to form for Don Toliver, especially from Lovesick, which was a little bit of a foray into something different, but I don't think it stuck the landing. This one, while it does have that cohesive theme, I think overall this is just a really good collection of songs. Overall, I don't think there's something that dips really low besides maybe Attitude. I've grown not to like that song much at all. But overall, I think this album is a big improvement, especially when it comes to the vocals, especially when it comes to the hooks, and especially when it comes to the harder and harsher production of Heartstone Psycho. Charli Xcx with Brat. This is probably her most accessible record over the past few years, while still diving into, with producers of A.G. Cook, going into that hyper pop and kind of leaning more back into the 2000s pop era. And it definitely goes into that full force. There is some amazing production on this record. And Charli Xcx does provide something a little bit more personal in the writing that does elevate this record to be more than just your standard pop record. Charli Xcx is becoming probably one of the best pop artists of this decade so far. And I'm glad she's finally getting the recognition that she is receiving on this record, where you get remixes, especially with Lorde there as an example. There's a lot of attention and recognition going on with this record, and I'm really happy for it. So the last one, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing this right. Arooj Aftab with Night Rain. So this is a Pakistani singer-songwriter, and this kind of falls into the jazz but also classical genre. And the way that these vocals are portrayed, it has a little bit of a haunting presence to it. But the way that everything else is arranged, I can think of the first track of an example. It just has these amazing plucked guitars. And the way that Arooj Aftab kind of just sings through these instrumental arrangements, it just creates this spellbinding and just very just transportive kind of feeling to it. It sounds like the album cover and like the title says, it sounds like you're just falling into a deep sleep, or you're kind of walking in this forest that's like black and white, but it has this odd beauty to it at the same time. It is an amazing record, especially when it comes to the arrangements and the production. Incredible record. Probably going to be in that top 20 list there as well. But these are all of the records I listened to and I loved in June of 2024. Again, be sure to look out for the top albums of the mid-year. I'm going to try to get that out as soon as possible. But thank you very much for watching. Thank you for giving me the time to talk about all these records. What did you think of all these? Is there any that I missed? Let me know. And thank you very much for watching, and I will talk to you again very soon.